Καλησπέρα Μελβούρνη. Φίλες και φίλοι, έχω τη μεγάλη χαρά και τιμή να σας παρουσιάσω την 11η Επιμνημόσυνη Δέηση που έγινε στην πλατεία Λήμνου στο Albert Park της Μελβούρνης.
I too pay my respects to elders past, present, emerging and the traditional nations of the Kulin Nation. Pay our respects to their connection to land, sea, country, culture and history. And we are here today recognising a very significant part of our culture, our history and the communities that have kept that connection alive. And want to thank the committee here for your dedication in actually making this happen. The great story behind this service, behind the sculptures that Arlene mentioned, is that it's been community-led. Community-led, and the passion of community is about to keep those memories alive. Because that's how we learn from history. That's how we learn from one and each other, through keeping those connections alive. So I do want to congratulate the dedication of the committee, the Lemnos Gallipoli Commemorative Committee, in your dedication to that history. To Albert Park College, for your service here today and your commitment to preserving those memories as well. And you know, one of those memories I'd like to just briefly touch on is Corporal George Knight. Corporal George Knight lived right here in Albert Park. He left a family, left a wife, family, at the age of 21 to enter World War I and the Gallipoli front. Almost 5,000 people from what is now known as Port Phillip left our shores down at the Port of Melbourne, entering lands that many of them had never actually encountered before, fought on the fronts of Gallipoli, went through Lemnos, and many of them did not survive. And one of those, unfortunately, was Corporal George Knight that I just mentioned. He died of dysentery on the way to, from the front. And what is really fitting with the commemorative sculptures here is also that recognition of our nursing services. The people that cared for our soldiers on the front line. And their stories deserve to be remembered as much as everything else that went through World War I and our Anzac services. So it's fitting that we not only remember those that fought on the front lines, but those who cared for people on the front lines as well. The dedication of our health and nursing teams, the dedication of our soldiers, the dedication of all the services, logistics that went into supporting everyone that was involved. We need to remember those memories. I once again thank each and every one of you for helping preserve those memories. It is through those memories that we learn, that we pay our respects, and that we remember what to do in the years ahead, lest we forget.
The sisters buried at Lemnos by Vera Brittain. O golden isle set in deep blue ocean, with purple shadows filtering o'er thy crest, I kneel to thee in reverent devotion of some who lie thy bosom to rest. Seldom they enter into song or story. Poets praise the soldiers' might and deeds of war, but few exalt the sisters and the glory of women dead beneath a distant star. No armies threatened in that lonely station. They fought not fire or steel or ruthless foe, but heat and hunger, sickness and privation, and winter's deathly chill and blinding snow. Till mortal frailty could endure no longer, disease's ravages and climate's power, in body weak, but spirit ever stronger, courageously they stayed to meet their hour. No blazing tribute through the wide world flying, no rich reward of sacrifice they craved, Only the need of their victorious dying lives in the hearts of humble men they saved, who when in the light of final dawn is breaking, still faithful, though the world's regard may cease, will honour, splendid in triumph waking, the souls of women lonely here at peace. O golden isle with purple shadows falling across thy rocky shore and sapphire sea, I shall not picture these without recalling the sisters sleeping on the heart of thee. Thank you.
In Flanders fields the poppies blow between the crosses, row on row, that mark our place. And in the sky the larks, still bravely singing, fly scarce heard amid the guns below. We are the dead. Short days ago we lived, felt dawn, saw sunset glow, loved and were loved, and now we lie in Flanders fields. Take up our quarrel with the foe. To you, from failing hands, we throw the torch. Be yours to hold it high. If ye break faith with us who die, we shall not sleep, though poppies grow in Flanders fields.
Good morning, everyone. I will begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we meet, the Bunurong people, and pay my respects to elders past and present. And I will echo the many acknowledgements that you made from the outset. Thank you so much. I would like to also acknowledge any veterans who have joined us here today, and to the families and friends who support them. Thank you for your service. Yes, Nina Taylor, member for Albert Park, and it is an honour to be here today to represent the Honourable Ben Carroll, Premier of Victoria, and my parliamentary colleague, the Honourable Natalie Suleiman, Victorian Minister for Veterans. And it is a privilege to join you as we gather at Lemnos Square to honour the courage and sacrifice of those who served, as well as the generosity and humanity shown by the people of Lemnos. During the Gallipoli campaign, the island of Lemnos played a vital role for the Allied forces. It served as a harbour for ships, a refuge for the wounded, and a place where nurses, doctors and locals worked tirelessly to care for those who had endured the hardships of war. For many Australian soldiers, Lemnos was the first place they received medical treatment, comfort and compassion after leaving the battlefields of Gallipoli. The people of Lemnos opened their communities and their hearts to those in need, forging a bond between Australia and Greece.
Για τις πιο δύσκολες ώρες σας, είμαστε κοντά σας. Παναγιώτης Τζιότσης, Orthodox Funeral Services. Με κατανόηση, συνέπεια και επαγγελματισμό, όπως απαιτούν οι περιστάσεις. Παναγιώτης Τζιότσης, Orthodox Funeral Services. Τηλέφωνο 03 95 68 58 58.
Could I just begin by noting the Deputy Consul here and the representative of the New Zealand Government and the committee led by Lee, ably led by Lee, my parliamentary colleagues Georgie Crozier and Nina Taylor, and the many community members here with links to Lemnos. I want to make a couple of very simple points today. The first is to reinforce some of the comments that have been made previously about the very great significance of the links between Greece and Victoria and Australia, and Lemnos in particular. Those acts of kindness that have been spoken about during the period of Gallipoli have left a long resonance and have strengthened the links between Greece and Australia. The many Greek migrants who came to Australia, including from Lemnos, have also built upon those connections and links. But that history is important too, not just today because of the links and because of the people that are so prominent in our Victorian community, but also because of the message that the Great War still continues to send. it's very clear that there are risks in the world today, and picking up the Mayor's points are what lessons can we learn? And we can learn very significant lessons. Lessons, I would argue, in the first instance of preparedness. And Australia is not prepared. We're living in a very, very dangerous world in our area of the world, as well as more generally. The share of our economy that we devote to defence is not adequate at just 2%, just a mite over 2%. Greece, I might add, spends more than 3% of its smaller economy, 27 million Australians, just a bit over 10 million Greeks. But their share, their contribution as part of the EU and as part of NATO, and the recognition of the more dangerous world is a lesson for us. They are spending more than about 3.1% of their economy.
Good morning all, dear members of Parliament, board members of Lemnos Gallipoli Commemorative Committee, Mr. Telamis, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, good morning all. It brings me great honor to represent the Consulate General in this year's 11th anniversary of the Lemnos Gallipoli Memorial. This morning, as we gather to pay our respects to the brave and fallen soldiers and the tireless and dedicated nurses of the Gallipoli campaign, we also have the opportunity to reflect on the important connection between Australia and Greece. The relatively small island of Lemnos, located in the northern Aegean Sea, served as a strategic advance base for the Allied forces. Ships were anchored, soldiers prepared, nurses set up medical supplies, and army generals devised plans for battle. Yet, as it always with war, the human connection strongly resonates. The peoples of Lemnos offered refuge and support to Australian soldiers. They opened up their villages and homes, and we know of stories of great compassion and humanity. Let us also not forget that close to 150 Australians' final home, their eternal resting place, is on the island. This is a connection that continues to bind Greece and Australia as strongly today as it did over 100 years ago. And what a significant place to come together this morning and reflect on connections at the dedicated Lemnos Square, just a short distance away from Station Pier in Port Melbourne, where thousands of Greeks reached Australia some years ago. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Aileen, and good morning, everyone. Well, today, when I got asked to do the address, I thought I would cheat a little bit, and and I borrowed the address of I did for Anzac Day at Tokemore recently, so bear with me. Today, I'd like to speak about the nurses who have served in all wars, including the Boer War, and who lovingly cared for all our sick and wounded soldiers, sailors and airmen. In World War I, almost 3,000 nurses of the Australian Army Nursing Service served in England, India, Middle East, Palestine, France and Lemnos, and they were actually at Gallipoli. They were off the shores on the hospital ships, and a lot of people seem to forget that bit, but they were actually at Gallipoli. They served in 192 locations, on 39 ships, numerous hospitals, casualty clearing stations, field ambulances, trains, and on the barges in England. In many areas, conditions were very different due to the horrible weather and large number of casualties. At one hospital, over a 3-year period, nurses cared for 90,000 patients while at one CCS, in the first 24 hours, 3,000 patients passed through the units, which is an incredible number. These units were closer to the fighting and often had to be evacuated to a safer area when bombardment became too close. And it was at a CCS that 7 of our nurses were awarded military medals for bravery under fire, refusing to leave their patients and protecting them from shelling. I think they used basins and things as helmets. So nurses are very clever in organising things. Ambulance trains often had an average load of 700 to 850 patients. Trains were very difficult to provide care for the boys due to jolting and walking around the stretchers, and one nurse remarked how she had to climb between carriages with a long frock on. It was very, very difficult. Nurses were also allocated to work on barges in the United Kingdom because patients with chest wounds or major injuries were transported on these barges because it was considered a more comfortable way of transporting the patients rather than on the trains. And it wasn't easy for nursing as often the barges leaked. Nurses were at Gallipoli, as we've mentioned, and on the hospital ships, and in Lemnos, the 3rd Australian General Hospital was one of the hospitals there, under the auspices care of Grace Wilson up there. And they did a magnificent job, they really did, and with a very low death rate of patients once they got to the hospital. After Gallipoli, France was the next big offensive for the AIF, and it was here that the nurses were allocated and located in British and Australian hospitals and CCSs right throughout the country.
Για τις πιο δύσκολες ώρες σας, είμαστε κοντά σας. Παναγιώτης Τζιότσης, Orthodox Funeral Services. Με κατανόηση, συνέπεια και επαγγελματισμό, όπως απαιτούν οι περιστάσεις. Παναγιώτης Τζιότσης, Orthodox Funeral Services. Τηλέφωνο 03 95 68 58 58.
ξεχνάτε να βοηθάτε αυτούς που μας υποστηρίζουν. Από μένα, το Σωτήρη Σωτηρόπουλο, μέχρι την επόμενη εβδομάδα, γεια σας και χαρά σας.